the T-Rex. It's the icon of the Cretaceous, no matter what Jurassic Park might have led you to believe. Indeed, the T-Rex actually evolved around 72.7 million years ago in what would become North America today. However, while the T-Rex is the undisputed king of the dinos, at least in terms of popularity, it actually had a closely related cousin that was very similar, the Tarbosaurus Bataar. Alas, despite being the cousin of the king, the Tarbosaurus has largely gone under the radar comparatively, with most people not really knowing much about this iconic theropod. Well, today, we're changing that, and we'll be taking a deep dive into the major differences between the T-Rex and its Asian cousin to see just how deep the similarities lie. Now, since we're comparing the two, it makes sense to start with their evolutionary origins and where the lineage diverged. Luckily, this is now better understood thanks to a recent paper on the Conculu mongoliensis, which has found that the Tyrannosaur lineage migrated between Asia and North America 3 times, and it was the third migration that would go on to separate the lineage of the T-Rex and the Tarbosaurus. Despite being the lesser known of the two species, the Tarbosaurus is believed to have actually evolved first, appearing on the scene in Mongolia around 70 million years ago. That's almost 3 million years before the T-Rex took its first thundering steps. Inevitably, though, both species would eventually go extinct during the KT extinction, otherwise known as the day the dinosaurs died. Being very similar physiologically, as we'll see soon, it's not all that surprising that both evolved in very similar environments. Notably, the T-Rex's North American habitat would likely have been semi-tropical, with expansive forests, coastal swamps, and sometimes open floodplains. Meanwhile, the Tarbosaurus's environment is likely to have been incredibly humid and primarily consisting of floodplains with large river channels and dense forest landscapes. That certainly explains a lot in terms of similarities, especially given both filled similar niches in their respective ecosystems. That said, there were plenty of differences. Despite Tarbosaurus being the slightly older species, it was actually the T-Rex that held the crown in terms of size. Indeed, while the Tarbosaurus clocked in at an incredibly impressive maximum weight of 5 tons and up to 10 meters long, the T-Rex took this to an extreme at around 9 tons and 12 meters in length. In other words, the T-Rex weighed potentially 80% more than its Tarbosaurus cousin, and was around 20% longer. Another major difference between the two was their overall conformation and shape. Indeed, while the two were similar in shape at first glance, there were actually quite a few subtle differences. Notably, the Tarbosaurus was more slender than the T-Rex, with a slightly lighter build and a longer, narrower snout than the T-Rex's bulkier skull. The Tarbosaurus's skull was particularly narrow towards the back compared to the T-Rex, which suggests the Rex had better binocular vision than the Tarbosaurus. Thus, the Rex would probably have had better depth perception and spatial awareness. This is an incredibly important ability for a predatory species, as depth perception is pivotal for judging the distance between an animal and its prey. That's not to say the Tarbosaurus was any less powerful a hunter, though, but it just focused on slightly different senses. Indeed, since the Tarbosaurus had comparatively larger auditory nerves and olfactory bulbs, it likely would have had a heightened sense of smell and hearing instead. Its refined inner ear structure may have also given it a better sense of balance, which is naturally crucial in high-speed chases. Some have also suggested that its heightened sense of smell have made it even more prone to scavenging behaviors than the T-Rex. A further difference in the skull of the two lies in the tooth structure. Indeed, while the T-Rex's mouth was packed with large, wide-spaced teeth, the Tarbosaurus's jaw was instead filled with more slender teeth with smaller gaps between them. Interestingly, the Tarbosaurus also had a locking mechanism in its jaw that provided more stability when clamping down on prey, something the T-Rex lacked. Despite these differences, the Tarbosaurus is still predicted to have had a bite force comparable to, or potentially even slightly stronger than its cousin. So in a display of bite force alone, neither species would be at a particular advantage. And what about the forelimbs? The Tyrannosaur family is notorious for having almost laughably small arms, with the appendage having shrunk in size over millions of years to become tiny stumps compared to the species' huge bulk otherwise. However, relative to its body size, the Tarbosaurus's arms were even more diminutive than its American cousins. It's not entirely clear why this is, but there is an argument that the arms of tyrannosaurs were used to grip prey, as evidenced by stress fractures on many arm bones. This could explain the Tarbosaurus's even smaller arms, since its locking jaw would allow it to grip prey better without needing its arms as much as the T-Rex, which may have used its forelimbs to help it cling onto struggling victims. That's just a hypothesis, though. With its forelimbs out of the way, let's now take a look at its legs. Of course, both creatures were evidently powerful, heavily muscled animals, but their leg anatomy does suggest slight differences in hunting style. Indeed, the T-Rex had a shorter tibia in its lower leg than its femur. This suggests a slower, more powerful gait. Meanwhile, the Tarbosaurus was the opposite, with its lower leg tibia being roughly equal to its femur, indicating a slightly faster running speed. This also ties in with the Tarbosaurus's more slender build. Given this, while the T-Rex's average speed would have been around 20 to 25 miles per hour in short bursts, the Tarbosaurus topped this at around 30 miles per hour. That's around 20% faster. Still, that is only based on short sprints, and both species would have likely had an average running speed of around half their top speed. In summary, both the Tyrannosaurus rex and the Tarbosaurus Bataar were very similar physiologically. However, the Tarbosaurus was smaller, more fleet-footed, and likely attacked by biting down and hanging onto prey, using its locking jaws to cling on. Meanwhile, the T-Rex likely attacked in a more powerful burst, using its jaws to bite down and break its prey's bones, potentially also relying on its hefty weight to overwhelm prey. In any case, both species were the apex predators in their respective environments. But in the end, both would meet the same grisly end after the KT asteroid struck Earth and decimated international food chains. Indeed, once both species' prey died out, it was only a matter of time before the food chains collapsed. And these mighty species, once rulers of the world, were relegated to the history books, the only signs of their multi-million-year reigns being the impressions of their bones in ancient rocks. Which species is your favorite? Let us know which you love most and why in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Paleo Brew videos soon.